RIE, Research, Innovation and Enterprise, are critical to Singapore's development. We started on this journey in 2006 to set up the RIEC in order to deepen our science and technology capabilities along the whole value chain, from basic research to product development to commercialization. And it was an idea which Dr. Tony Tan came up with, and he suggested that I create an RIEC and that I chair it myself, which I've done since. Since then, we've made significant progress. Our scientists are gaining international recognition, and they're starting to make breakthroughs and to have an impact. Many of our research labs have international collaborations with universities and companies elsewhere, and tech companies like Rolls-Royce, like Dyson, like HP have set up advanced product development facilities here. Rolls-Royce doing electrification of engines, Dyson looking at electric cars, HP looking at 3D printing. Our tech startup scene is beginning to take off, with companies like Razer, like Swee, which used to be called Garena, and Visense, basing here because they see our efforts in AI, in cybersecurity, in robotics, in fintechs. And the R&D has yielded practical and useful output and products. For example, autonomous vehicles, the manufacture of specialist living cells to treat different medical conditions. So instead of a molecule, you have a cell which is tailored in order to infuse into the patient's body and treat his condition, maybe cancer, maybe some other illness, and hopefully cure him. We launched RIE 2020, the plan for the next 5 years of research efforts, 3 years ago. And we set aside $19 billion over 5 years for research. This is the midterm review for RIE 2020, and after the review, we've affirmed that we're on track. But we are sharpening our focus and making fine-tuning adjustments to the plans. What does our success depend on? First, we've got to continue to emphasize science and technology throughout our society. We have to ignite the passion of young people to pursue careers in science and technology, to inculcate a mindset which embraces scientific, objective, evidence-based decision-making. And it means our schools and universities, our government institutions, and in fact the general population at large. All must share this scientific, rational ethos. Because you need this conducive social environment in order to do good scientific and R&D work, in order for the population to benefit from the progress of science and technology. We can't afford to have people who are fearful and distrustful of science, who are held captive by totally groundless anti-scientific beliefs. For example, you see in other countries, you read about anti-vaxxers, people who distrust vaccines, refuse to allow their children to be inoculated. Vaccines which protect people and which save lives. And they believe, for example, that the MMR vaccine causes autism. There's no evidence. You can't get rid of this misapprehension and this distrust and fear. And we must not ever get into that position. Secondly, we have to develop a strong core of talented researchers, innovators, and entrepreneurs. We've been growing our local talent pool of research scientists and engineers. Now we have about 35,300, this is 2017, so maybe it's gone up a bit since then. And 70% of these are Singaporeans and permanent residents. Our schools and our post-secondary institutions have an important role in developing this talent pool. And for those with a passion for science and technology, we also have specialized schools like the NUS High School and the School of Science and Technology. But all our schools, the whole education system, has a role to play to inculcate knowledge of science and maths and also a scientific, rational mindset in our people. At the same time, we are attracting talent from abroad to supplement our own, because talent is a key factor in science and tech. And the countries which do well in this global competition for talent are those which are best able to attract talent from around the world, and that is even true of big countries like the United States. So Singapore, small as we are, all the more we have to be open and welcoming to researchers, innovators, and entrepreneurs. Thirdly, we have to build international partnerships with other foreign countries and institutions to pool expertise and to undertake more ambitious projects. For example, last year was a France-Singapore Year of Innovation, and after that we've set up the France-Singapore Joint Committee on Science and Innovation. And we've also got in Singapore, in NUS, the Create Campus, Campus for Research Excellence and Technological Enterprise, which has attracted highly regarded institutions from all over the world, to partner with our institutions here in Singapore. And Swee will share more details on this later on. Our public investment in RIE, Research, Innovation and Enterprise, is about 1% of GDP. It's about the same percentage as other countries like the US or UK. It's not a small sum for us because it's not one-off, but it's sustained over many years. And this 1% from the government is stimulating more than matching investments in RIE by the private sector. And the RIE efforts we do must be balanced across a range, from basic research in focus areas, to promoting development and application of new ideas, to promoting the entrepreneurship and the companies which can exploit these ideas in order ultimately to reap economic dividends from our investments. So we must and we will continue to invest in science, technology and innovation in the long term, to do so in a balanced, sustained and sustainable manner in order to keep Singapore competitive, globally relevant, and in order to seed exciting new opportunities in the future economy for Singaporeans. So I'll ask Swee to say something and then the others.
Thank you, PM. So our investments in research, innovation and enterprise is a very important part of our creating economic, social and security value for Singapore and Singaporeans. Now, in the social area, for example, we had a lot of very good discussions about the application of research and innovation to our healthcare system and how we can take better care of the health of our people, as well as take better care of the health of our aging population. Now, in the economic area, as you know, we have the Future Economy Council looking at the industry's transformation. We now have 23 industry transformation maps, which we have clustered into 6 clusters. And in every of those clusters, we are aligning this with the work on our research and innovation efforts. And that is going to be a very important way of powering our economy in the years ahead. For this RIEC meeting, this is our 11th meeting. For the first time, we have a dedicated session on in fact, a whole day on innovation and enterprise. We've had VCs, venture capitalists, as well as very successful entrepreneurs who have been making very good progress in the technological innovation area to join us from all over the world to discuss how we can strengthen our innovation and enterprise system in order that we can better harvest the results of the investments that we've put into R&D over the last 25 years or so. And in this meeting, I'm very glad to say that they strongly endorse our positioning of Singapore as a global Asia node for technology enterprise, or global Asia node of technology, innovation and enterprise. And they feel very strongly that this is an excellent time for Singapore to position itself this way, because the economies of Asia are growing and the global linkages are needed more than ever. And at the same time, it will allow us to draw some of the best technology, innovation and talent into our region. Now, as part of that effort, there are a few areas that we will need to continue to invest in. The first and foremost is that our investments in R&D is a long-term endeavor. It is not just for the short run. We must continue our investments in basic sciences. We were strongly committed to this effort to support our universities to make important progress in the basic sciences. And at the same time, as the PM said earlier, we hope that this basic investment in basic sciences will allow us to develop the talent pool as well as to develop the scientific base for us to catalyze investments in R&D by our business sector. And in that regard, we are glad that we have made very good progress. So for example, over the last decade or so, from 2006 to 2017, our business's investment in R&D have grown by about 5.7% per annum compounded. And today, in 2016, the value is $5.7 billion. Our talent pool for research scientists and engineers have also grown significantly, and in the private sector alone, it is now over 19,000. It's about 19,000. And many companies are making use of Singapore for their work. For example, Procter and Gamble, which has invested $12 million in intrapreneurship to catalyze entrepreneurship within their own sector, within their company. Companies like SATS Limited have also been investing in R&D. And at the same time, there's a lot of co-innovation efforts by private enterprises with our universities. For instance, Applied Materials, Singtel, they invested in the AI lab with NTU, and Tesla Therapeutics with one of our research institutes looking at cancer therapy. So I think we are making good progress in that area. But at the same time, we must continue to invest in the basic R&D. And there are three major areas that we are going to make as part of our changes to this midterm review. One is to invest $500 million in digital technology, in AI, in supercomputing, in robotics, because the digital technology and the greater cybersecurity will be necessary for us to be able to ride this digital wave. The second area is in the cell therapy manufacturing, the manufacturing of specialized cells for therapeutic purposes. We're investing $80 million in building core capabilities for cell therapy manufacturing. And the third area is to support our 30 by 30 goal. We're investing $144 million in sustainable urban food production. And this will support the agri-food industry and allow us to meet Singapore's food needs by 30% by 2030. I think Minister Masagos had announced some of this earlier on. PM also mentioned about the development of talents, and our development of talents will need to be across a number of areas, both in basic R&D as well as in the innovation and enterprise space. We need to create more opportunities for our young people, or for our people, young or old, to understand more about the markets in Asia and the possibilities of applying technology for major innovation. And finally, growing our global networks. PM has mentioned a number of areas for which we are collaborating with countries in this innovation space. And we will be continuing this effort, picking partners from around the world for which we can be part of this global network. And this supports our broader strategy of Singapore as a global Asia node of technology, innovation, and enterprise. So it's one of the key nodes, together with all other areas, with other countries, to create a more vibrant ecosystem around the world. Thank you.
May I add a couple of points to what Swee has shared, and I focus my comments on the AME, or the advanced manufacturing sector. We believe that the manufacturing sector and deep engineering capabilities are still essential to the next phase of Singapore's growth. In fact, more so than ever before. However, from the panel discussion, it's clear to us that the nature of manufacturing has changed and will continue to change rapidly in the years ahead. So there are opportunities for us to further distinguish ourselves in this sector, building upon our strengths. Manufacturing must no longer be seen in isolation, But manufacturing, our competitiveness in manufacturing must be seen as part of the entire value chain, from research and development to production and our supply chains. So going forward, our ability to position ourselves carefully in various niche areas across the entire global value chain will be critical to our competitiveness. So let me give some examples. The integration of data, computing power, artificial intelligence, robotics can all add up to help boost our competitiveness in the advanced manufacturing sector. Competition becomes much less dependent on population size, land mass, the size of the enterprise, or price. For example, we talk about the growing need for what we call high mix, low volume, high value add manufacturing. And some in extreme say that we are going for the production of one, a batch of one. Now, for this type of manufacturing to happen, it will require new production models, new skill sets, new standards, new regulations. And all these can play to our strengths. So this will also allow smaller economies like ours to compete in niche areas away from the previous model of high volume, low value add type of production. Going forward, competition and competitiveness in this manufacturing sector will very much depend on the robustness and resilience of our supply chains, our connectivity to the world, our research, our data analytics, the quality of our production, the standard of trust that we have, the intellectual property protection that we have. I think these are all the strengths that are essential to our competitiveness going forward. The panel has given us very good suggestions on how we can play to our strengths, but at the same time, I think we are very aware that we must never be complacent, that all these factors are also factors which other people are working very hard to try to catch up, if not to leapfrog our current capabilities. Last but not least, as both PM and Swee mentioned, the quality of our talent, our access to the talent networks will be key in how we enable all this to come about. And we are not talking just about the talent that exists in Singapore. We are talking about our ability to access the talent networks, connect up our talent network with those in other parts of the world. And that will become a crucial distinguishing feature for our competitiveness. So maybe I'll let Lawrence add on to the other sectors.
Yeah, thank you. I will say a few words on the domain of USS, which stands for Urban Solutions and Sustainability. We have invested in USS with the goal of tackling our resource constraints, especially in three key areas: water, energy, and land. And these are, I think all of us would agree, existential challenges, strategic areas which really need to be addressed. And our investments in these areas have yielded good results because we have been able to reduce our vulnerabilities in these areas and turn our vulnerabilities into economic opportunities. So when we discussed with the panel the direction for USS, there was general agreement that this are the right areas to invest in, and we will continue to invest in these issues of resource constraints in these three areas. But we identified two more areas where we ought to pay more attention. The first is climate change and rising sea levels. This is a threat, an existential threat to Singapore because we are low-lying and surrounded by water, and we cannot take this for granted. Although there are projections that talk about rising sea levels at the end of the century, I think there are more downside risks than upside, so we do have to invest in research to understand the risk and take the measures to protect ourselves. The second area is food security. It is linked to climate change in some ways because climate change will impact on global food production, and that in turn will impact on the availability of food for the future. So that is an area which we should invest in for food security reasons, and it also plays to our strengths because we are already a center which is trusted around the world for food quality, for food safety, and we have strengths in manufacturing, biotechnology that can play well in this particular new area. Beyond these areas of existential challenges, if you will, we also discussed how there are a growing range of urban solutions around the world. And these urban solutions can be found across different aspects of the urban environment: building, construction, transport, logistics, real estate, a whole range of things in the urban system. Traditionally, you would think of these as quite low tech, but technology is transforming these areas, enabling them to become more efficient, more productive through big data, data analytics, IoT, Internet of Things, and AI. Right? So there is a whole range of new solutions emerging in this space of what we would call urban tech. And we think that there is, again, opportunity for us to do more in this space, invest in R&D, but also work with the companies that are engaged in this space so that they can use Singapore as a living laboratory to pilot, test bed, and eventually scale up their solutions. And we have an opportunity to do this because we are opening up new sites for development. Coincidentally, I just launched our Draft Master Plan exhibition this morning, and you would see in the Draft Master Plan that we have many new districts that are being developed. And these provide the platforms where we can work with private sector, get companies, startups that are engaged in urban solutions to test bed their solutions, and eventually, if they are successful, scale them up across the districts or even nationwide. So our investments in science, technology, and innovation in the USS domain is critical. It will enable us to address resource constraints, but importantly, they will help us build a more sustainable, resilient, and livable city for the future.